Good evening and welcome back to the program this evening. It is great to have you on board. Those of you who are tuning in for the first time, thank you for tuning in to Everyday Man of God Ministries. It is a pleasure and a blessing to continue to be here each week, even on my other videos that I do during the week occasionally, but for this channel. Those of you who've been following me, I've decided on the 1st of the next month, this program on Saturday evenings will no longer be here on YouTube. It will be solely on Rumble and on Spotify and Anchor. I am hoping to get a website also up in that time frame. We'll see how things go, but again, thank you for those who are following and have supported me through this. I am grateful for that. Speaking of the following, the podcast or channel, however you want to put it, I never know how to call this, a show, a program, a podcast. So many different names to use these days. But back in the old days, it would just been an old-time gospel hour, I guess. But we are on pace to outdo a podcast from about 5 months ago. So I'm excited about that. So I'm hoping more will tune in, to this podcast. So as usual, we're going to cover things this week, like every week, talking about things that are in the news but kind of buried in the news, things that don't really lead the news. We could talk about Palestine, in Ohio. We can cover all that, the China spy balloons and what's come of that, the Biden and over there and with Zelensky, the fraud over there. But everybody under the sun is covering that, so there's no need for me to add on to that. You've already heard it 1,000 times. But a couple of things I want to talk about this week. We're going to start with Hollywood. And I know what you're thinking, who I'm going to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about that person. He's going to be second. First, I want to talk about Mark Wahlberg. Since I'm from New England, I'm pretty well familiar with Mark Wahlberg. Not too long ago, on the Today Show and in a magazine, Variety, I think it's called, caught this on the internet not too long ago, he talks about how religion is not popular in Hollywood. But he can't deny his faith, and he just can't deny it, because that's an even bigger sin. So he's always been, his words, a devout Catholic. Think about that for a second. Mark Wahlberg, by the way, if you're up in New England area and Massachusetts, he's from the Boston area, there's a lot of devout Catholics, or Catholics. I don't know what devout even means at this point. You got such a schism there. Mark Wahlberg says he is a devout Catholic. Pause. A devout Catholic. Who played a porn star. Yeah, he's a good Catholic. He did a movie, I guess, years ago. Never seen it, but it's called Boogie Nights. And apparently it's about the porn industry and so forth and so on. I don't know. Then he does all these, I was going to say Born Identity ones, but I don't think that was him. But he does all these violent movies and all this. He was a Calvin Klein model way back in the 80s, I believe. But he's a devout Catholic. Very religious man. Very religious. What a bunch of baloney that is. See, that's the problem what's going on. And we're going to talk about a lot of this. That is the distortion of what faith is supposed to be. Everybody believes in God. Or I should say, everybody knows there's a God. I believe there's a God. I know there's a God. Okay, do you follow? See, that's where the difference comes. A lot of people, say, hey, I've always been a Christian, but you do these awful things. Which leads me to Kelsey Grammer. He's in the new movie Jesus Revolution. I'm sure you've seen a lot of commercials for this movie now, the Jesus Revolution. This movie is about Chuck Smith. He led he's, I believe, an evangelical out on the West Coast in California I think he's from Long Beach or something like that, which is interesting because I think Ray Comfort, actually, and I could be wrong on this one, so I apologize if I am. I think Ray Comfort does a lot of his stuff down there on Long Beach, California, which is quite the coincidence. That's that guy with Kirk Cameron and so forth. So, Kelsey Grammer, the other day in an interview, said he is a Christian. And said it's his Christian beliefs that have always guided him. Kelsey Grammer. He also, if you don't know who that is, he played in, or he was an actor in the TV show in the 80s called Cheers, and did another show called Frasier, where he played a psychiatrist. Because that's what the Bible says you should do. Be a psychiatrist. Well, I was just acting. I think you're acting like a Christian. You're not either, so it doesn't make any sense. I mean, this man was in The Simpsons, for crying out loud. And I think he was in some crime movie where he kills people. I can be wrong about that, too. So some of my movies and TVs in the recent years is way off, so I'm not 100% sure on that one. But here's the funny thing about him. He's a Christian Scientist. Now, I'm not going to try to get too deep into this, but he was raised a Christian Scientist during the whole Jesus movement, supposedly. And they pretty much follow, her last name is Eddy, not Helen Eddy. I forget the movement. It was founded by a woman there. I cannot remember her name. She's divorced multiple times. She's actually from New Hampshire. She's from Bow, New Hampshire, I believe it is. And she went down to, I think, Lynn, Massachusetts. I know the area well because I'm up from New England, so I kind of know the area. And she married like 4 times, 5 times, I can't remember, but multiple times. So Kelsey Grammer said his Christian beliefs have always guided him through his career. And he believes it guided his career, his Christian beliefs now guided him to this moment to play Chuck Smith. He said he felt so in tune with Chuck Smith. He felt it was an easy transition from his upbringing and understanding and being a Christian Scientist. It was easy for him to be to be Chuck Smith, which is interesting because Chuck Smith's not a Christian Scientist. So he felt as if he were just like Chuck Smith. I find that interesting. Christian Scientists. We talked about all these fake religions, Christian Scientist, and now whatever Chuck Smith was. I don't know what he was. He was a evangelical, Pentecostal, Protestant. I have no idea. I can't remember. His students, I guess, are Greg Laurie. Greg Laurie is a popular one. He's got the mega church. He kind of has that whole tough guy, Steve McQueen, leather jacket thing going on. I think he did an interview with Mel Gibson a while back. And not to discount Greg Laurie's upbringing. He had a tough upbringing. I don't wish that upon anybody. I guess he got beat as a kid. His mother was bounced around. So I'm not gonna say anything about his childhood. But what he is now as an adult, we can talk about. And he's fraudulent all day long. There's nothing to argue there. Well, I guess anybody can argue with it, but those are Chuck Smith's proteges, so to speak. And I think there's a guy named Skip Hetzing or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. But yeah, that's got to give you some pause. It has to, as a born-again Christian or a conservative Christian, I guess everybody's a conservative Christian. Let's understand what conservative Christian means, though. I am a conservative, a traditionalist. What does that mean? I am a traditionalist when it comes to the Bible, the King James Bible, that type of tradition. Not a Westboro Baptist waving and standing outside of funerals and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. Although that's how more and more you're going to see actual King James Bible-believing people portrayed as, because they will be put in categories that they have nothing to do with, because it's just easier to do that. call them weirdos and radicals and so forth and so on. So when it comes to being a conservative Christian, I would say I'm a conservative biblical guy. I follow King James Bible, which is a conservative tradition, so that is tradition. Look up the definition of conservative. I'm not going to look it up right now, but look up the definition of conservative Christian. Conservative by itself and Christian. Now we can take the word Christian in a secular sense out of, let's start with conservative, traditional, and then we're a Christian as a Christ follower of the times of Antioch, that type. And it's a much different conservative Christian than those who call themselves conservative Christians today with conservative values. Their conservative values are not as traditional as you may think they are. They are more modern. They're within the last 150 years. That's their traditional. That's a conservative Christian. And we real Bible believers go further back than that. And those Bible believers in that time frame would have been against what? The Vatican. We know that just by history. Just read anything about history. You'll figure that out. You can read between the lines in some books and or some papers and in some articles or whatever you want to say. Some are very blatant about the being against the Catholic, the Roman Catholic Church. But not today's conservative Christians. Earlier this week, Mark Levin, now many probably know who Mark Levin is, very insightful constitutional lawyer, very insightful into politics and all of that, absolutely. But these men, like Glenn Beck, I find it interesting that they talk about what God is and what the Bible says when they are all over the place on the Bibles, because they are among the group that said all Bibles are the same. And if you watch my Whiteboard Wednesdays videos on YouTube, you'll see that all Bibles are not the same. So if the verses change, omitted, and so forth, and all the different versions, you'll see they're not the same. But Mark Levin, earlier this week, called Pope John Paul II a great man. Well, that has to be rather stunning. I guess Mr. Levin, along with people like Tucker Carlson, maybe Mr. Levin is unaware of what he is helping usher in. Folks, we're still at the tip of the iceberg. We're absolutely still at the tip of the iceberg. It's a mighty big iceberg. I want to shift my thoughts a little bit to this whole teens voting in Oregon. I know, you're thinking to yourself, why are we talking about that? Well, because who do idolatry? Well, there's a lot of that going on. Ideologists, people who have these ideologies and different thought process, and what do they go after? They go after your children. The Bible says how we're going to turn against each other, the mother against the daughter-in-law, and so forth and so on. I'm not saying so forth and so on to be flippant about it, but we know this is happening. So teens voting in Oregon, because, I mean, you know, nothing can go wrong with this. And I'll tell you this, this idea, obviously, these are the same ones who say follow science. The same ones who say follow science have ignored science. Because anyone who has a rudimentary understanding has learned throughout time, in the years, that the brain does not fully form until the age of 25, or, you know, roughly thereof. 25. In Oregon, they want to lower the voting age to 16. There was one article, or what do you want to call it, campaign, said lowering the voting age to 16 is a bold idea to strengthen our democracy. Don't fool yourselves. It's just another part of destroying all this country. That's why when I tell people, I'm like, I don't understand your whole Save America idea. I'm not looking to save America. I'm not looking to pray for America. But I am looking to pray for the people in America. And for those who are lost to turn to the Lord. That is the most important thing. I mean, think about when you were 16. I know it's so long ago. Well, for me, it was definitely a while ago. Back in the day. I am not the same person now, clearly, as I was when I was 16. At the age of 40, I was not the same as I was at 16. At the age of 30, I was not the same as I was at 16. Even at 25. Shoot, at the age of 21, I was different than I was at 16. But you want to give the voting rights to 16-year-olds. We all know that's a demonic idea. Well, those of you who are truly born again, you know that's a terrible, terrible demonic idea. All right, we'll move on from that. Now let's talk about an interesting story from across the pond. Is that what the English used to say, across the pond? Have you heard about this woman? I didn't even give you her name. There's a Scottish leader, or this hopeful Scottish leader named Kate Forbes. Now she's come under some sort of pressure, I guess, now because she's not for same-sex marriage. Well, neither am I. She is not for people having sex outside of marriage and having children. Well, neither am I. People do make mistakes, I understand that. She is against abortion. She's pro-life. That's fine, so am I. And she doesn't believe in transgender, other than the fact that she believes that just a biological male who wants to be called a woman or wants to be a woman. Now, she came under fire for this. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe women should be in authoritative roles over men. I want to make sure that's absolutely clear, because that is not correct. But what she said is correct. Now, she didn't say she hated people that happen to be a same-sex marriage. She didn't say she hated gay people. She didn't. I'm not even going to use the word gay either anymore, by the way. Until 1957, that was not even the definition of the word. So she doesn't hate on any of these people. She just says, biblically, you're wrong. Scientifically, you're wrong. And she's right. She's absolutely right. Now, her opponent is a man named Humza Yousaf. Now, you have to understand, England, and a lot of people say England was just, they started to infiltrate Muslims in the last 10 years have started to take over England. And yeah, there's definitely been some violent Muslims that have come over. You know, not everybody from other countries is a horrible human being, but there's been some dangerous, bad people. And they say, oh, this immigration is a new thing, and these people coming over and so forth and so on. Actually, it's not. So there was a black and white TV show years ago. What's the name of the movie or show? It's like Secret Agent Man or Danger Man or something like that, from the 1960s, from Britain. And there was an episode, and it was about people from from the Middle East, Pakistan, Afghan. I don't know where they were coming from, but from all that area, were sneaking into the country in England. That was back in the 60s. So this is not a new thing. This has been happening for a long time. Some are being snuck in, some are here, got there properly, and so forth. So, Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Remember that. I didn't want to spend too much time on that, but I found that interesting because here on this program, we're going to deal with things that have to do with the Bible, Christianity, whether it be secular or true. A lot of people who know me know that there's a difference. There's a difference between a real born-again believing Christian and Oprah Winfrey and Joel Osteen Christian and Rick Warren and people like that. While we're talking about women, because we're just talking about Kate Forbes, let's talk about Jane Fonda. Really, Steve, you're going to talk about Jane Fonda? How does Jane Fonda get into this? Jane Fonda. All right. She is what do they say, a trip. She's a nut without a shell. This woman has been an activist since what they used to call it back in the day, Hanoi Jane or Hanoi, I don't know what they call it, Hanoi Jane. She was an anti-Vietnam person and so forth. And yeah, I can get to my arguments about why we shouldn't have been in Vietnam and so forth and so on. But that's not what the program is about today. But she's been an activist for a long time. And by the way, I'm not against anybody protesting. You want to protest something and you want to be against something, go ahead. It's when you become violent or block people's roadways or force your agendas down people's throat, make them convert at the sword like the Roman Catholic Church. Sorry, didn't mean to slip that in. Or other churches. But Jane Fonda. Now, there are whales down in New Jersey being killed, supposedly, by ships and windmills. I am not sure how that happens on either one, but the windmill part, that caught my interest. Because I thought of Jane Fonda. Why? Because she was a proponent for windmills and solar power. Because it was better for the earth. We have to stop harming the earth. We're doing such danger to the earth. You know these folks. But she is also an activist for Save the Ocean Brethren. Who is that? They focus on saving, wait for this, all the sea creatures. The octopus, the whales, the sharks, all of them. We have to stop catching fish, for crying out loud. Save them all. Save them all. See, that's the problem with folks like her. She is so mixed up and has no idea what she is doing. Save the whales, save the seagulls, save the windmills that possibly are killing the whales and seagulls and activists against. You see how messed up they get? They have no idea what they're doing. They're all over the map. And then the same activists or proponents or activists of the same thing, and then they turn on each other and like, hey, wait a minute, our cause is better than your cause. And then they act, it's like, it's never ending. But here's the problem. Why are people always mixed up like this? Why do people get so messed up? Because they're not in their Bible. That's why. And that's what the media today is in the news. They got you so wrapped up in all this stuff. Like I'm talking about Kate Forbes and Mark Wahlberg and Hollywood. The Southern Baptist, the Roman Catholic Church, Hinduism, racism, anti-Semitism. Now, every single one of those leaders, if they just went, and they're not going to, obviously, we know this. If every one of them going, hey, everybody, for the next week, just open up your King James Bible and read it. It's not going to happen. Because they have devils. I don't mean like the devils that people go, yeah, it's alcoholism. Those demons have been chasing them for years. I'm not talking about that phraseology. That's not what I mean. I am just shocked at even when the churches get involved. You have men supposedly of God sitting there up on those pulpits talking about these things today. We have to fight against these AIs. We have to fight against... What are you going to do? These things are to come to pass. If you think you're changing God's plans, then you got a mixed up, warped view of the Bible, my friend. I take a pause and have a drink of water every so often. Speaking of AI, here's another interesting story. The CEO of Gab, and if you don't know who Gab is, I'm not sure how popular they are anymore. I know they were in the news a lot during the Trump era, so to speak. It's a social media app. I personally have never had Gab, so I don't know how they work. I'm not familiar with their settings or anything like that. I will, however, say I was on Parler when it was there briefly. Didn't really care for that all that much, but it was there briefly. But anyways, they're a social media app, which some have called a right-wing alternative. So this guy, the CEO of this place, I forget his name, he wants to create an alternative to ChatGPT. And if you don't know what that is basically an AI system. Give you a rough idea of what this is. AI system that could create an article for you or even a sermon. That's a terrible problem. There was a rabbi, and I may have spoken about this last week, but there was a rabbi who used this ChatGPT, and the congregation, the folks there, were not happy because they didn't understand the false misinformation he was giving, and he realized maybe ChatGPT wasn't a good idea. Yeah, here's a problem, Rabbi. Never mind that the ChatGPT is an issue, doesn't work, and is left-leaning. The problem is that you even used it in the first place. So any Christian deciding to use born-again Christian, which is funny because I don't think you'll find too many born-again Christians using it, and you shouldn't. Yeah, that's an issue. So, anyways, my guess, if I'm a guessing man, well, there's an old saying, it's not a betting man, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not a betting man. So my guess is that the Gap CEO will probably, I'm just going on a limb here, will want it to lean right. He actually said he just wants a ChatGPT. Now, hold on now for a second. He still wants a ChatGPT, and he calls it satanic. But he also says he wants a ChatGPT for God. How can that not be disturbing? He wants a ChatGPT for God. So we're relying on this technology, these AIs, as non-Christians, and even people who call themselves Christians. And some will say, well, you use these computers and YouTube and Rumble and artificial intelligence, and that's technology. And I'm not going to go down that road because that is a vortex that people will try to get you in. Not happening. So we're counting on AIs and robots. Which leads me to my next topic. Bill Gates, and I've done a video on him, And Bernie Sanders, I don't think I've ever done one on him. Robot taxes. I'm sorry, what now? Yes, robot taxes. Now that's popped up again in the news. Bernie Sanders agrees with Bill Gates when Bill Gates says there should be a robot tax. A robot tax. You heard me now. A robot tax. Taxes on robots. Now, it's not completely new. I think they floated this idea back in 2015 or 2017, somewhere in San Francisco, I think, of all places. San Francisco, but understand, Bill Gates says we should tax robots. If they're going to take the place of human beings, understand the problem of robots and AI. Why do you think there are more men who are more likely to be single than women, which is weird? There's double the numbers. Because when you create all this pornography and these dolls and these AIs and these virtual realities, there's no human contact anymore. So the relationship is dead. And that's how they want it, by the way. That's how Satan wants it. Understand that. All this virtual reality, garbage, and so forth, this is of the devil because it destroys marriages, relationships, families, boys growing up to be men, young ladies growing up or girls growing up to young ladies and women. It destroys that. And by the way, the taxes, where do you think the tax money's going to go? You're going to tax these robots, and they're probably going to claim themselves as dependents, I'm guessing. But then that tax money is going to get kicked back in their bank account, which is that bank account belongs, and then probably those robot taxes being paid by the companies, and those companies are the ones that own the robots in the first place. Oh, for crying out loud, geniuses. I don't know how this doesn't get more coverage from that angle. All right. Another thing that's come across my attention this week was the Southern Baptist Convention. And we love these people, don't we? Bunch of nuts. The Southern Baptist Convention ousted female pastors. One article says the Southern Baptist Convention ousting female pastors shows the Christian right's radicalization. Think about that. So after they ousted Rick Warren and female pastors, when this report claimed this, I guess they never read 1 Timothy 2, chapter 12, have they? You know what? Let's read it word by word. Hold on one second. Let me open up the King James Bible. I have to make that known too, because people go, well, what Bible is he reading? The King James Bible. The one that still has the truth in it, and hasn't omitted everything under the sun, or changed as much as it possibly could. Let's turn there now. If you have a King James Bible and you're following along right now, please open it up to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12. You're not going to get a lot of weekly programs that do this, I don't think, anyways. Verse 12. And I thought it was 2, verse 12. Oh, I just said 1 Timothy. I'm in 2 Timothy. I'm sorry. I went to read him like, that's not what was right there. 2, verse 12. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. So I guess that's an issue, especially for the secular world. In most non-denominational churches, because they believe in that women are supposed to go out and preach to the world, and preach in the church buildings, and preach on the street corners, and preach in the market square, and preach in the donut shop, and so forth and so on. And that is a lie, and that is a sinful thought that's in someone's brain. I understand why people try to get there. It's very common, but that's not what the Bible teaches. Not the King James Bible. And if you're truly born again, maybe I shouldn't even say that, because sometimes even born again people are a little confused on that. I don't honestly know why, because even born again supposed pastors and preachers will tell you this, differ on these things, which I don't understand either, because they'll also tell you the Bible says what it says, and even so-called preachers will tell you The Bible says what it says. It means what it says. It's right there. But if it doesn't fit the narrative, popular word in today's word, if it doesn't fit the narrative, then we got a problem. We got to change it to fit our narrative. All right, we're going to move on to the next article that's come across my path along the way this week. I think it was on Monday. No, I'm sorry, not Monday. Wednesday. Fuller Seminary. Fuller Seminary, Christian Theology. So there's an article, and I went to a couple different places, but there was this particular one that says it was rekindling hatred. Seminary brings anti-Israel speakers to speak on Palestinian Christian theology. Now remember, Fuller Seminary supposedly pumps out a lot of preachers and pastors that are pro-Israel. But there are people who are even split in these seminaries. That's why I think seminaries is not something you should be involved with. One can give courses, I guess, and if you do start giving courses, do you become a seminary without being called a seminary? And people like to use tricky words and tricky phrases to get out of something. I don't want to spend too much time on that one because it's a hot topic. Not because that's not why I don't want to stick to it, but there are a lot of issues there. I don't know how this happens in supposed Christian seminaries and so forth. How that happens. Other than the fact that you got satanic people. By the way, satanic people aren't always those who are sitting there worshiping the shrine of Satan and they have a big devil statue. Sometimes they look like your mom with apple pie down the road. Here's another subject which I thought was interesting. Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, I never did pronounce that, Synod president calls for excommunicating white nationalists. A couple problems I have with this whole excommunicating white nationalist. I am not a white nationalist, although I'll probably be considered one because I have a King James Bible, and there might be a white nationalist somewhere that has a King James Bible. Therefore, let's lump them together because that's exactly what's going to happen. Understand that right now, King James Bible believers, you follow the truth. So if anybody poses with your Bible, even though they don't follow it at all, you're going to get lumped in with them. So be very careful. Vet those who say they're Bible believers. Vet if they seem to be a little bit on the militia side. A lot of King James militia people, those type of white nationalists, usually are very big on, not all, but usually they're very big on guns and having guns and weapons and all those other things. And they're ready to be warriors and they're going to be martyrs for Christ. Be very careful of those folks. Those are people you have to be very careful. Now, I'm not saying you can't protect your family. I'm just saying be careful of those who talk a lot about that, who are very open about expressing their feelings about these things, or showing you their guns and their prepper doomsday bunker and stuff like that. Very concerning. But I thought that was interesting for excommunicating white nationalists. Makes me wonder how long the Lutheran churches had them in the first place. Did they just decide now they're going to excommunicate them? Because maybe the public says so? So you probably, if you did have them in your church systems, you didn't have a problem with them before. Or you really don't have them in your system, and you just want to make it look like you're pleasing to the world. Not a very good church if you don't even know what's in your church. That's pretty sad. That's why you don't have mega churches. You don't know who's out there in the audience. They might be lost and trying to find Jesus. Yep, that lost person is going to sing the same songs as that saved person, huh? All right, I'll move on from there. So you got this Abrahamic family house. Some may have heard of it. It popped up again on my radar this week. I read a little bit about it previously, but I'm going to try to sum this up a little bit. The Abrahamic family house is a building. It's like a interdenominational, interfaith, whatever you want to call it, complex. it's going to have a Christian church and a synagogue and a mosque all in one building. So coexist until you don't exist. Coexist until you're one religion. Sound familiar? Because that's on the horizon. So they haven't built this place. Not yet. I guess it's supposed to be the end of this year, I think. I'm pretty sure it's the end of this year. But this whole thing taking place, being built, was actually a document that was signed by Pope Francis. I mean, on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church, of course. Think about that. So the Vatican is in bed with Islam, which I don't mean all Muslims, I mean those who kill people. Remember, the old Roman Catholic Church, which will come back, converted people, or you die by the sword, just like some of the different factions in Islam did the same thing. And the synagogue in this particular case is going to be the Jews of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Sanhedrin sect. They're all coming back. It's a full circle. And they're all getting ready. Because the one final one will come back. And I don't mean the Messiah. Not yet. One who will pretend to be one. Remember that. The final Antichrist is coming, and they are paving the way. And this house, I believe, is a part of that process. The Pope intervened again this week against the celebration of Latin Mass, which on the surface I could care less that he intervened on the Latin Mass. Could care less at all, because I am not Roman Catholic and I'm against it. I'm not against Roman Catholic people, I'm against the system itself that has had so much delusion. If Roman Catholic people would just read the books from the 1900s and the late 1800s all the way now, you'll find all the differences and changes in the absurdities and the what's the word? The contrast, but not the contrast. How they conflict with one each other. They just don't match. Sad. But why is he intervening? And why is this whole new Latin Mass, the newer generation are discovering the Latin Mass and the old ways? I've talked about this a few years ago, that the old ways are coming. And they're going to approach the younger generation, because they're going to prey on the desire. Like, oh man, the church is too weak, man. And I say that myself about the Protestants and all the Baptists and all of them. They're getting weak. They're weak. And that is a rise of what will be the real alt-right. The alt-right that you talk about now is not really the alt-right. If I can say that twice in a row. Alt-right. This is, again, the beginning of something bigger than you could possibly imagine. So I work at my computer. I have a computer. I run a receiving department. And I got to go on the computer and enter in packing slips and so forth. And if you have a computer, sometimes down the right-hand corner, there's a little news thing, and if you click on it or you touch it or hover over it, pops up all the day's breaking news or news articles. But I want to share this with you. This week, in a positive light, this is what I see this week. Roman Catholicism, Buddhism, the Quran, and Hinduism all week have been pumping articles of how great they are and wonderful. You don't see anything about Protestants, obviously, here. You don't see anything about King James Bible believers, do you? Because these are part of the coexist. The Roman Catholicism, Buddhism, Islam, the Quran, Hinduism, they're all look at the Abrahamic family house. They're all going to be in one house, one temple, coexist until you're one religion. You don't think that's going to happen? There are those of us out there like myself who've been saying this for years. Some of us are documented in videos saying it. Some are on radio shows documenting it. Some are on podcasts or whatever documented saying this. But we're not big time. And then you have people who come along like the Mark Levins and the Glenn Becks and suddenly like, oh, see what we've discovered? See what we already knew though? See, us Bible believers, we already knew this. Where have you been? The same God and the same Bible and the same religion and following Jesus you talk about all the time? Are you really not following the Bible at all? Because it's there. We all knew it was coming. Now, it's okay, the secular world being ignorant of it. But if you're going to claim to know God and you're all spiritual and all this other stuff, and you didn't know, how does simple folk out there know this? How do us peon, born-again Christians already know this? Why are you late to the party? Because you're already at a different party, and you're going to go to hell. You will burn in the lake of fire. It's the way it is. All of these things that you hear about in the news, there are things you don't hear about the news, but that's why I'm trying to bring you these different stories. Yeah, we can talk all night about the Ohio derailment and the conspiracy on that. We can talk about all these things, but everybody's talking about that. In fact, while they're talking about that, they're missing the bigger picture of what's really going to happen. So when Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, CNN, all the rest of you are trying to kick the can down the road and save America for another day, you can't save America. You've got no power. When it's time, it's time. When God decides. Not you. Oh, God, just give us one more day. Can you give us one more day? Nope. You don't get to look down on the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. You do not get to. That's not what's going to happen here. If you could save but 50, oh, just 3, you don't get that argument. When God says it's time, it's time. So instead of worrying about kicking the can down the road and trying to save America and trying to figure out the Nord Stream pipeline and trying to figure all that out, we can talk about that in the future if you want. That's fine. But understand, it means nothing. Because your only salvation is Christ. That's it. We talk about Romans chapter 10. Call on him. For whosoever call upon his name. Does it sound familiar? I appreciate you listening tonight. I am, as always, thankful. Kept it under an hour. I'm trying to make this program under an hour. If it goes longer, it goes longer. If those of you out there think that I should make this more of a video, also podcast, feel free to make a comment on it. But for now, this is how we're going to roll with this. So we are going to be on Spotify, Anchor. So those of you on YouTube, I'll leave a link there and a link to the Rumble also. And those of you who are listening on Rumble, same thing. I'll leave the link to Spotify and Anchor to the podcast over there because that's where it's going to be, along with Rumble. But it might just be this way. We'll see how things go, but definitely we want to go away from that. So the 1st of next month. When I say the 1st of next month, I just realized that's only in a couple days. I don't mean this 1st of the month, not March 1st. Sorry about that. April 1st, which is an odd day to do it. So I promise it'll be maybe April 2nd. And we will no longer be doing these videos on YouTube. This program will not be there. It will be on just Spotify, Anchor, Rumble. So those of you who do follow me on YouTube, I politely ask you to please head on over to Spotify, Anchor, and Rumble. Those of you who do follow me on Spotify and like the show and listen, please click the whatever button, the subscribe button or whatever it is, to keep us going, so it gets into the system and people are listening to this. If you like the content, if you don't, you don't. So be it. With that, God bless and good night.